and win convincingly, score 30-ish points, hold the Giants' offense in check, and you enter the playoffs on an upswing where you've won 4 straight games, and you've averaged 33.5 points per game in the process. I would feel better about that. I'm not saying that I wouldn't be happy for Joe Judge and the Giants fans if they find a way to win this game and the Philadelphia Eagles beat Washington and the Giants get a chance to play a playoff game. It would be good for the franchise. But in terms of giving us something at least somewhat remotely viable to watch wild card weekend, Dallas is the best team.
No, there's no doubt about it. You're right, BT. The last couple of weeks, the Cowboys have put up 71 points. No, this week, including this week, they put up 100-some points.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's just amazing what Andy Dalton looks like. This wide receiving core finally feels comfortable with him. The Cowboys feel like the team with the most opportunity in the postseason. The Giants just aren't ready. Washington has a quarterback issue. I mean, who's playing quarterback if Alex Smith is banged up?
Well, the kid who played yesterday, who played pretty well.
But that's what I mean. I mean, that's my point.
Yeah.
So it's like the division is just it's a mess, and it's highlighted by a starting quarterback who was the 15th overall pick a season ago, not like 3 seasons ago. Last year's 15th overall pick out of Ohio State just got cut by the Washington football team. Now, we're not surprised by this, BT, because early on in the season, we knew that Ron Rivera, new head coach, doesn't own him, new organization. It's new everything, basically, down there in Washington, other than, the draft picks they've had over the last few years. Everyone's being evaluated, not just on the field, but who you are. And are you going to make this culture right? Are you going to fit what we're trying to do? And early on in the field, we knew that Dwayne Haskins wasn't that answer because he got benched after 4 weeks. It didn't take much longer after he started for him to get into trouble again last weekend by going to the strip club. And then obviously a poor performance last night or yesterday afternoon just was the final straw. We knew, and I think Ron Rivera knew, Dwayne Haskins was not the future. So why hang around? Why hang on and make it any less painful? Just get rid of the kid now.
The only reason I would, and listen, I actually really respect the move.
Yeah.
Because the level of it is tough to quantify the level of unprofessionalism and basically disregard for team required to get straight up cut. Yeah. Not an off-season salary cap move or, new staff comes in, which in essence it has, obviously. They didn't draft Haskins as Tiki said, but a new staff comes in, they do a redirection. This isn't my guy. I want to go to, this might happen with my team. Sam Darnold, new coach comes in. We'll see. This happens all the time. We'll see what happens. Trubisky has suddenly played very well. So the last month or so, these things can kind of change on a dime. But you got the sense it wasn't going to change at all with Dwayne Haskins because he couldn't do seemingly the one thing required to put yourself in a position to play well on Sunday. And that's to handle your business Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Yeah.
Like that's the bare minimum requirement.
Yeah, that's the easy part.
That's the easy part.
And he wasn't even doing that right.
He wasn't.
Which is sad.
Yeah. I really do respect that they moved on from him, and the energy coming from Washington is just, we've talked about this a lot, is just incredibly positive. It feels it's the complete antithesis of the heaviness and the staleness and the disconnect that really that has permeated the franchise and the fan base for basically 20 years.
Yeah.
There's a different spark now. There's no doubt. The only thing from a football point of view, it's always about giving the 52 other guys the best chance to win, right? What if this kid gets hurt on Sunday?
Yeah,
it's a must-win game.
Yeah, you're
Who's
right.
playing quarterback?
But I think it almost is. It's bigger than that because think about where Washington is, BT, and I think the Giants are the same way. I mean, of course, they want to get into the postseason. It's invaluable experience. The Cowboys are a little bit different because I think they're the one team that is grossly under performing what the expectation was at the beginning of the season, and so it's almost like they're the most desperate team to get into the postseason.
That's true. I would agree with that.
Just so they could say, at least we got to the postseason. Now anything can happen. Woo. I mean, we're 6-10, but hell, we're here, right?
Can't take us around out here. Come on now, team.
We're gonna have a good conversation here. But for Washington. And we saw this early with remember the Giants game? Remember they tied the game, or should have tied the game late. It was 19-20. He goes for 2 points. Yep. And this is early in the year. It was kind of like, I need to figure out who we are. This season is obviously about winning, and if we win, great. But this is more about finding who we are. It's why he tested Dwayne Haskins on that 4th and 18 from the 18-yard line, whatever it was, and he threw like a check down. And that's when, Ron Rivera was like, dude, you're not the guy. And that's when he got benched. And so at this point, he still has that same evaluation. Yes, the playoffs are tantalizing. I hear what you're saying. You're absolutely right, BT. You got to get there. You want to get there. It makes you feel good when you get those postseason checks. It feels good. But I think it's bigger than just making it to the postseason for Washington.
No question. Now. I'm just trying to give it a different aspect, a different thought. Yeah. I'm in complete alignment with you. I just wanted to throw it out there because we've always talked about, when you allow one player, whether it's the most high profile position or, seemingly somebody who's inherently replaceable, your fourth tight end who's a special teams or a blocker, whatever. You've got to have, while there's different rules and players are treated differently based on status and stature, it still is about the greater good in that locker room. And you're right, the micro view is they might be a little shorthanded in a game they have to win on Sunday against Philly. The macro view is you just sent the message, this will not be tolerated, and we're forging ahead even though we invested a premium draft slot in this young man a couple of years ago. So, listen, for those, I'm sure the fans of these teams know that, but for those who might not, Washington wins, they're in. If the Eagles somehow beat Washington, that's Sunday night, by the way. But by the way, this is good. Because if it was inverted, it would be tricky.
You're right.
The Giants and Dallas play early, so at least there will be great intrigue going into the Sunday game. Because let's face it, if it's reversed and the Eagles are playing Washington at 1 o'clock and the Giants and Dallas are playing at night, and Washington wins, then that's a completely meaningless Sunday night game. At least you have a chance. Whomever wins, Dallas wins, fan base going to be fired up going to the Sunday night game. Giants win, Big Blue fans going to be pumped up. I want to play a cut. Let's play this from Coach Rivera. This is interesting. What does Dwayne Haskins? This is before he got cut. All right, this is before the decision was made to release him. So this was earlier today. And here's Ron Rivera dishing on his former quarterback in what went awry really quickly. Head coach of Washington.
Where do you go from here with Dwayne?
This is about learning experiences, life experiences, and I think, a lot of the things that he's gone through, and not just this year, but last year as well. Sometimes you have to go through some hard knocks. Sometimes you have to reach rock bottom before you can dig your way back out of it. Sometimes, change helps. But with Dwayne, it's, what have you learned? What are you going to take from these experiences that are going to help you grow and get better? That's the big thing with him. And, that's the thing I think that hopefully he learns from these experiences, because hopefully they'll make him stronger and they'll help him. And when he gets the next opportunity, he makes the best of it.
And by the way, that point of view, that is framed in a way that carefully not yet divulging the decision to release Haskins, but that is coming from, the mind and the heart of somebody who knows, all right, we're done the paperwork. He's a goner. I'm not ready to project this yet, but obviously he knew that he was gone because everything was basically in the past tense and kind of like, past tense, but also straddling the fence of what he can do in the future, where if you really listened, you got the pretty easy sense that it wasn't going to be in Washington. Nor should it be.
No, look, and it turns, this is really, it's kind of unprecedented when you think about it, how quickly the quarterback is being given up on in the NFL. We talked about the Josh Rosen situation that's just one of the oddest in recent memory. Now you have Dwayne Haskins. I think it's smart in a sense because instead of hanging around knowing you have the wrong guy, like a lot of teams did back in the the 90s and the 2000s, well, maybe you'll get it. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, give it another year. Yeah, maybe. And you put yourself in years of purgatory as an organization. If you know it and you feel it and it's just not right, you cut bait and you move on. And sometimes it's not fair to the kid. Like what happened to Josh Rosen, that's not fair to Josh Rosen, but it's the reality. Cliff Kingsbury, who wasn't Cliff Kingsbury's guy. The same thing can be said now about Dwayne Haskins. And I think we all knew this at the beginning of the season because Ron was very non-committal. And we asked him the question straight up, and he was like, hey, he's going to compete. Which meant, guy was drafted number 15 overall in the first round is now competing for the starting quarterback.
Yep.
Clearly, maybe, he wasn't the guy for Ron Rivera, but it's just a new world for quarterbacks because I think a lot of it has to do with the money, BT. If you know and you don't want to have to even consider paying the guy, let him move on.
I'm with you, man. And that interview that Tiki referenced, we had Coach Rivera on a couple times, one of which was the day that he announced that he had cancer.
That's right.
He wound up telling his team at a meeting later on that night, and he's just such a gentleman and a man of character that he came on our show and did, let's face it, he talked to a couple of yahoos about nothing in the real world.
That's right.
In the grand scheme of things, when he knew that he was diagnosed with cancer, and he had to lay this on a locker room of about 100 men at the start of camp, reverence for that man. So really anything that Ron Rivera decides will be universally agreed upon, at least in terms of character issues on this show. We're both huge fans. We can both, work through inefficiency. Bills, Josh Allen, great example. We'll see what happens with Darnold. Maybe a new step. Maybe Darnold's kicked to the curb. He might be. We'll get to the Jaguars later on. What Trevor Lawrence can do for them with the first overall pick. How quickly Trevor can maybe turn that franchise around. But the point is that certain things are just non-negotiable. And you talk about, now not everybody's this way, but think about marriage, right? There are certain people, and I get this, and I respect this. I'm not casting judgment or aspersions, but when you date, there are certain things that you will not compromise, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's education, things that you eventually plan to project upon your family. If, this first date becomes a 10th date and that 10th date becomes an expensive engagement ring and then an expensive wedding. Like, you just know, like, there are certain things you can work with and certain things that you simply cannot. And a lack of work ethic and focus and diligence and professionalism, that's the silver bullet for anybody, especially a quarterback.
That's right. And it's the quickest way out. And you're right, because you're the quarterback and supposed to be the leader of the team. He was given the captaincy. Let's not forget that. It was stripped from him last weekend, obviously.
Yeah, it was.
But he was given the captaincy, even though he hadn't really proven himself. It was like, we're giving you the platform to be the man. Don't mess it up. He messed it up.
Ripped it right off his chest. Now he's out the door. I got you. And I'm rooting for him. I don't think he's a bad kid. I think there are, players where you get a sense, man, this guy might be a little more trouble. I don't get that impression with it. I think he's immature. I think he might be a little lazy. I'm not sure how smart he is in terms of processing football stuff. He's not a bad soul. I think he's a good kid.
I think you're right.
So maybe something triggers, but maybe not. There's a chance, and I said this on the show last week, there's a chance in 2 years, Dwayne Haskins isn't in the NFL.
Yeah.
We'll see. All right, coming up, talk about stopping the bleeding. The Steelers needed this, and it was really a tale of two games. They were getting bludgeoned early. They come back. They win a big game against a good team. What's our takeaway? Are we ready to jump back in and maybe anoint the Steelers a player in the AFC, or maybe a little bit of fool's gold? We'll sort through that coming up next. Tiki and Tierney, CBS Sports Radio.
You're listening to Tiki and Tierney on CBS Sports Radio. Message and data rates may apply. Up to 5 messages a month. T&C and privacy policy found at warbyparker.com/terms. Reply help for help or stuck to cancel.
Have you ever wondered why eyeglasses cost so much? Glasses have been around 700 years. Isn't technology supposed to get less expensive over time? Well, there's a simple explanation. For decades, the eyewear industry has been dominated by a single company that's kept prices artificially high while reaping huge profit.